Hello everyone, this is Asra Sultana, Assistant Professor in Triple Department, working in ISL Engineering College. I am taking the subject High Voltage DC Transmission for Triple Final Year students. Last class we have discussed about the current and extinction angle control and other schemes like individual phase control IPC and equidistance pulse control EPC. Okay, IPC and EPC we have discussed what are the drawbacks. Okay, we have seen them, what is the block diagram, what are the various equations we have seen. Okay, so now today's class is the last class for the third unit. We will complete the third unit with this class. So here we are going to see in today's class the starting and stopping of DC link. So under this we are going to see the energization and de-energization of a bridge. Here we can see the voltage waveforms during de-energization and during energization for rectifier and inverter. Then we are going to see about the startup of a DC link and startup with long pulse firing, startup with short pulse firing. Power control we are going to see the power and auxiliary controller block diagram, generic model of VDCOL. Higher level controllers we are going to see, that is frequency and power frequency control, stabilization of AC ties, emergency control, reactive power control and subsynchronous damping control. Then control of voltage source converter, its block diagram, its design of current controllers, decoupled current controllers, block diagram of PLL, control hierarchy and system control. Let us start today's class. Starting and stopping of a DC link. So here energization and de-energization of a bridge we are going to see. Let us consider N series connected bridges at a converter station. Okay, in this diagram we are considering that there are N series connected bridges at a converter station. If one of the bridges is taken out of service, there is need to not only block but also bypass the bridge. This is because of the fact that just blocking the pulses does not extinguish the current in the pair of valves that are left conducting at the time of blocking. So what we are considering N series connected bridges at a converter station. If one of the bridges is taken out of service, there is need to not only block but also bypass the bridge. Why we are bypassing the bridge? Because of the fact that just blocking the pulses will not extinguish the current in the pair of valves that are left conducting at the time of blocking. So when we are blocking a path, the current should not pass through it, but it is not happening. That is why what we are doing, we are bypassing the bridge. The continued conduction of this pair will inject AC voltage into the link, which can give rise to current and voltage oscillations due to lightly damped oscillatory circuit in the link, which is formed by smoothing reactor and the line capacitance. Transformer feeding the bridge is also subjected to DC magnetization when DC current continues to flow through the secondary windings. The bypassing of the bridge can be done with the help of a separate bypass valve or by activating a bypass pair in the bridge. That is, two valves in the same arm of the bridge. The bypass valve was used with mercury arc valves where possibility of arc backs makes it impractical to use bypass pairs. So along with the mercury arc valve, we were using bypass valve in the earlier days, where the possibility of arc backs makes it impractical to use bypass pair because arc back will be done in the bypass pairs. With thyristor valves, the use of bypass pair is the practical as it saves the cost of an extra valve. The process of de-energization of a bridge is explained with reference to this figure, where we can see here six 6 thyristors are there, that is odd number 135 and even number 462. Okay, these are the switches SS and S1. With the valves 2 and 3 are assumed to be conducting initially when the blocking command is given. With the selection of bypass pair 1 and 4, commutation from valve 2 to 4 is in the usual manner, but the commutation from valve 3 to valve 5 will be prevented. In case of a predetermined choice of the bypass path, time lapse between the blocking command and the current transfer to bypass path can vary from 60 degrees to 180 degrees for a rectifier bridge. So this time can be reduced, that is from 60 degrees to 120 degrees, if the bypass pair is chosen such that valve with the lower valve number carrying current at the instant of blocking will be included in the bypass pair. In the inverter, there is no time lag involved in the activation of the bypass pair. The voltage waveforms for the rectifier and the inverter is shown in the figure A and figure B respectively. So voltage waveform for rectifier and inverter is shown for rectifier in A, and for inverter it is shown in B. Overlap is neglected here. Current from the bypass pair is shunted to a mechanical switch S1. With the aid of the isolators S, the bridge can now be isolated. Isolator pair S and switch S1 is interlocked such that one or both are always closed. Energization of a blocked bridge is done in two stages. Current is first diverted from S1 to the bypass pair. For this to happen, S1 must generate the required arc voltage, and to minimize this voltage, circuit inductance must be small. In case the bypass pair fails to take over the current, S1 must close automatically if the current in that does not become zero after a predetermined time interval. AC breakers with sufficient arc voltage but with reduced breaking capacity are used as switch S1. In the second stage of energization, current is diverted from the bypass pair. For the rectifier, this can take place instantaneously, neglecting overlap. Voltage waveform for this case are shown in the figure below. So voltage waveform during energization for rectifier and inverter is shown here. So we have to note a point that to avoid operation at high delay or extinction angles, de-energization of a bridge at the rectifier or inverter station is accompanied by the de-energization of a bridge at the inverter or rectifier station. Let us see the startup of a DC link. There are two different startup procedures depending upon whether the converter firing controller provides a short gate pulse or a long gate pulse. The long gate pulse lasts nearly 120 degrees. Average conduction period, that is this 120 degrees is the uh, for average conduction period of a valve. Let us see the startup with long pulse firing. In this case, current extinction during the startup is not a problem. Starting sequence in this case is as follows. First one is D block inverter at about gamma equal to 90 degrees. Second is D block rectifier at alpha equal to 85 degrees to establish low direct current. Third is ramp up voltage by inverter control and the current by rectifier control. Let us see next startup with short pulse firing. First is, in this case, the problem of current extinction during startup is present as the valve with the forward bias is not put into conduction when the current in that falls transiently below holding current. Starting sequence for this case is as follows. First one is open bypass switch at one terminal. Second is deblock the terminal and load to minimum current in the rectifier mode. Third is open bypass switch at the second terminal and commutate current to the bypass pair. Fourth is start the second terminal also in the rectifier mode. Fifth is inverter terminal is put into the conversion mode. Sixth is ramp up voltage and current. The voltage is normally raised before raising the current. This will permit the insulation of the line to be checked before raising the power. Ramping of power will avoid stresses on the generator shaft. Switching surges in the line are also reduced. Required power ramping rate depends on the strength of the AC system. Weaker systems require fast restoration of the DC power for maintaining transient stability. Unfortunately, high ramping rates in such cases can give rise to large voltage drops due to the requirement of reactive power at the converter. Such voltage drops can lead to commutation failure at the inverter. Permissible ramping rates may vary from 2 to 10 per unit per second, implying a startup time of more than 100 to 100 to 500 milliseconds. Next, let us see the power control. The current order will be obtained as a quantity derived from the power order by dividing it by direct voltage. The limits on the current order are modified by the voltage dependent current order limiter, that is VDCOL. So what is the objective of this VDCOL? Objective of VDCOL is to prevent individual thyristors from carrying full current for long periods during commutation failures. So this is the block diagram of basic power and auxiliary controller which we are using. VDCL, that is voltage dependent current limiter, is placed here. Telecommunication equipment. OS is the order setting unit, and this is the AC signal. So the objective of VDCOL is to prevent the individual thyristors from carrying full current for long periods during commutation failures. Sufficient time delay will be given to prevent the action of VDCOL during normal AC system faults, which would otherwise drastically reduce DC power. Generic model of a VDCOL is shown in the figure. This one. So this is the generic model of a VDCOL. The generic model of a VDCOL is shown, and G1 of S and G2 of S we are finding as 1 by 1 plus ST down, and G2 of S as 1 by 1 plus ST up. By providing both converter stations with dividing circuits and transmitting the power order from the leading station in which the power order is set to the trailing station, fastest response to DC line voltage changes is obtained without undue commutation requirements. To get equal calculated current orders in the two stations, measured DC line voltage must be referred to the same point on the DC line by compensation for DC line voltage drop. This will be done by adding the term plus or minus R into ID to the measured voltage, thus referring the voltage to a common reference point. So when the DC line resistance is large and varies considerably, that is example when the overhead line is very long and exposed to large temperature variations, DC line voltage drop cannot be compensated individually in the two stations. This problem can be solved by using a current order calculated in one substation only and transmitting it to the other substation. The power order and the corresponding rate of change or order are set with thumb wheels by the operator in one of the stations, the lead station, which may be the inverter or rectifier station. Order setting may also be transmitted there by a remote control link from the energy control center. Order setting unit, which is a digital unit based on integrated logic circuitry, is intended mainly for performing power stepping and synchronization of order stepping in the two stations with the help of commutation link. The order setting unit in the trial station will accept a power order from the telecommunication system and will have a supervisory function for the power order transmission. The received power is both parity checked and checked with regard to allowed change from one order message to the next. If the received order message is accepted, a receipt signal is sent back to the lead station to allow transmission of new order messages. If the receipt signal is not generated and accordingly not received in the lead station, order stepping is interrupted and the latest power order will be repeatedly transmitted until accepted in the trail station. at which order stepping can start again. So power transmission interruptions as a consequence of telecommunication failures will be avoided. Use of programmable logic for realization of power flow control function seems to be most appropriate solution for future applications. Standardized computer hardware equipment can be used and the functions may be adapted to individual requirement. Auxiliary controller is designed to provide power modulation for frequency control or stabilization of AC systems. Input signal will be derived from the frequency or other signals. Let us see some higher level controllers. Power in a DC link can also be controlled in response to the quantities derived from the AC system, such as frequency, in order to improve the security of the overall system. This is achieved by an additional power or current order derived from an emergency power controller or auxiliary controller. Functions of such high level controllers are: first one is frequency and power frequency control, second is stabilization of AC ties, third one is emergency control, fourth is reactive power control, fifth is subsynchronous damping control. The frequency control can be first one we are seeing here, frequency and power frequency control. Frequency control can be used in the case of isolated load and isolated generation. In the latter case, objective is to improve the damping and reduce the wear of the generator and governor system. Nuclear power stations are very sensitive to output power and frequency fluctuations. By proper control of the power carried on the DC link in a hybrid transmission system consisting of both HVDC and UHV lines, frequency variations both during steady state and transient conditions can be minimized. So when the DC link is used as a tie between two power systems, frequency bias can be used to adjust the power flow over the tie to assist the system in difficulty. So here we can note a point that HVDC link has no inherent sensitivity to system frequency unless it is deliberately introduced in the control system. Without it, a constant power flow can overspeed a receiving system which has become separated from part or all of its load, even if governors cut off all primary energy inflow to local generation. Similarly, a sending end system can be brought eventually to a halt if more power is required from it than the connected generation can produce. Thus, although it would first appear that there is little benefit in the frequency control for a DC link between two systems, so large that the link cannot be expected to influence the frequency of either, it is prudent to incorporate an element of frequency control which, in the event of a partial breakup of a system, will prevent overspeed or underspeed. So, second function of high level controller is stabilization of AC ties. When a DC tie is connected to a system with weak AC ties to neighboring systems, DC link power can be varied quickly and automatically to balance the load flows and maintain stability if one of the tie trips. A DC tie used in parallel with AC tie can be employed to damp the low frequency inertia oscillations in the AC tie. Control signal used can be the rate of change of AC line power or the phase angle difference across the AC tie. DC tie can also provide frequency control for one end if the AC tie becomes disconnected and thus permit resynchronization of the AC tie. Third one is emergency control. In an AC tie line, power flow will be determined by conditions in the systems which it interconnects. If one of the systems suffers a disturbance, then there will be two options. That is, first one is to allow the disturbance to affect the other system, uh, also possibly resulting in a catastrophe for both, or to trip the tie, in which case the system in difficulty may lose one of the main infeeds on which it is dependent even before the disturbance. A HVDC link, on the other hand, even with the simplest controls, buffers one system from disturbances on the other. Power flow can continue at worst unchanged, but the option is available to vary power flow to assist the system in trouble. to the extent to which the healthy system can allow without putting itself in difficulty, subject only to the rating of the link. In general, with suitable control, a disturbance originating in either system can be shared in a predetermined manner and the oscillation occurring in the two systems can be damped simultaneously. Substantial damping can be achieved with a very small amount of DC power modulation. However, if a large degree of modulation is required with the DC line already operating close to its full capacity, it is found that significant results can be achieved simply by reduction of DC power at the appropriate instants. Fourth one is reactive power control. Reactive power control is important particularly in weak AC systems in reducing the dynamic overvoltages. Also in inverters, fast reactive power control can help in allowing the injection of increased power at times of need to improve the stability of the receiving end AC system. Although reactive power requirements for a LCC station are primarily met by shunt capacitors and filters, converter controls can be coordinated with the discrete control of the reactive power sources to provide voltage stability and eliminate voltage flickering. Modulation of the inverter extinction angle can help in HVDC power modulation by regulating the AC bus voltage at the inverter. Next is subsynchronous damping control. A radial HVDC link connected to a thermal generating station can contribute to the negative damping of the torsional oscillations at subsynchronous frequency due to interactions with the current controller. This problem usually surfaces when there are no parallel AC links. The power modulation controller mentioned, which is designed to damp low frequency rotor oscillations, can aggravate the problem. However, a suitably designed subsynchronous damping controller with control signal derived from the rotor velocity can help to damp or torsional frequency oscillations. So let us see the telecommunication requirements. Although manual power order setting with voice communication is possible, utilization of inherent speed of response of DC link will require communication channel of appropriate capacity. For the use of stabilization control, a 1200 baud channel is required for power flow control. This gives a sampling interval of 20 milliseconds with a resolution of 0.05% of the maximum current order, which should be adequate for most cases. Maintenance of proper current margin is essential and is the primary objective of the telecommunication channel provided. Certain precautions can help in overcoming the problems arising from the failure of communication. In raising the current order, it is preferable to carry it out first at the rectifier and then at the inverter. In reducing the current order, inverter current will be reduced before that at the rectifier. Okay, students, thank you everyone for watching the video. Next class we are going to see control of voltage source converter. Okay, then we will finish the third unit. Okay, still one more class is required to finish the third unit. Thanks everyone for watching the video. So today's class we have seen about the starting and stopping of a DC link, energization and de-energization of a bridge. So in that we have seen the by selecting the pairs how the it will operate. Okay, how the inverter and rectifier will operate. Then we have seen the waveforms for rectifier and inverter during energization and during de-energization. Then startup of a DC link we have seen, startup with long pulse firing and startup with short pulse firing we have seen. Power control we have seen. Okay. After power control we have seen the in power control we have seen the power and auxiliary controller block diagram, generic model of VDCOL. VDCOL is nothing but voltage dependent current order limiter. Then we have seen about the higher level controllers. So in that we have seen uh, function of higher level controller. 5 functions we have seen: frequency and power frequency control, stabilization of AC ties, emergency control, reactive power control, and subsynchronous damping control. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Next class I will be taking the control of voltage source converter. So in that we are going to see the block diagram of VSC controller, design of current controllers, decoupled current controllers, and control hierarchy and system control. Then there will be 3 levels of control in VSC based HVDC: system control, converter control, and PWM control. Okay students, thank you everyone for watching the video. Students, all the students should subscribe to the channel, YouTube channels of all the faculty members, whoever is teaching you subjects. Okay, whenever we make a new video, you will get the notification for that video. So students should subscribe the YouTube channels of all the faculty members, and all the students should watch the video from start till the end. If you have any doubts, you can ask the faculty. Okay, so first meet is over. So after first meet, this is the class I have conducted. 2.5 units were over, so remaining 2.5 we will complete it. Okay, thank you everyone for watching the video.